Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. So it's been a long time since we've done a LeetCode problem. So today I'm with one. This is called valid parenthesis problem. So let's talk about the problem and then let's find a solution for this. So given a string as containing just the characters, determine if the input string is valid. Now there are three conditions that we're talking about for an input string to be valid. First one is that the open bracket must be closed by the same type of brackets, and the open brackets must be closed in the correct order, and every closed bracket has a corresponding open bracket of the same type. Now, in this problem, you must notice that the open bracket must be closed by the same type of bracket. That's our first condition, and you can see in the first example that is absolutely satisfied. That my open bracket is correctly closed by the close bracket, and it's the corresponding close bracket as well. Now let's talk about the next example. This is true as well, and you can see that the open bracket is correctly closed by its correct close brackets, right? Now the next condition is open brackets must be closed in the correct order. Now this is really important. Now over here you can see that the first condition is violated, so they got a false. Now coming on to the order. Now what is meant by order is that you can see over here that this is the order. Okay, so first off we got the round bracket, then the square bracket. Okay, now this one must be closed first before I close the outer bracket. Okay, I hope you understand that the inner brackets must be closed first before I move to my outer bracket. The next one is every closed bracket has a corresponding open bracket of the same type. Yeah. Okay. So let's say the so you can notice something over here. I forgot to tell about this one. Okay. That every closed bracket has a corresponding open bracket of the same type. Yeah, that one is this example. You can have a look, I think. Yeah. So this one you can see that this open bracket, okay, this is actually missing the correct order. Yeah, you can see that this open bracket doesn't have the same type of closed bracket, and that's why it's false. That's the reason it was false. Now, in this rules, if you notice, there is one stack behavior. You can really notice well that it must be in the correct order. Now, already talked about this order, that whichever comes the last should be closed first. That gives us a behavior last in, first out. Okay. Now, if you got everything open, but you don't have any closed brackets, then that is also invalid. Now, another case is if you take a open bracket, you close that, then you got another closing tag without an open, that is also invalid. And when people see this problem at very first time, people usually think about the problem of should I write conditions for each of these what we're seeing now, and that's not needed. You should try to clump up your conditions into one specific thing. I mean, the easiest one for you to write to code would be for what is what needs to come into the mind first. What would be the most easiest thing to write a code for? Is it for true or is it for the false conditions? You should think about that. And guess what? Writing the condition for false is actually quite easier, right? The first thing why I say it's much easier is because the first thing that I want to talk about is if you don't find a matching, you can immediately return a false, right? You can return a false here. So that one. And another thing that I find writing, the conditions for false would be much easier is because whenever we're using a stack, and for example, that I already showed you this, right? Like all the parentheses are opened. And in this case, you don't have anything to close them, right? You don't have anything to close them. Now, this is also easier for me to write a condition for this also. Like, you might be thinking, how is it easier to write condition for this one than the previous examples? I'll just show you guys a quick thing over here. Now, in these conditions, what you can do is think of like this, okay? Let's say you take an example over here. We take something like anything. Take any example. This one, a rounded bracket, a square bracket, and then a curly bracket. Now, which one should close first? The curly bracket, and then the square bracket, and then the round bracket. Now, whichever came in the last got it closed first, and whichever came the last before that, and whichever came first that got closed the last, right? So this is a stack behavior, and if this stack behavior is done properly, then you can absolutely return true, right? So stack works something like this. Basically, you just need to push an element inside of it, and when the corresponding bracket comes in, you simply pop it out. Let me show you. It's like canceling. You got two brackets right here, and you got this. Okay. At first, you're gonna put this inside your stack. Okay. And this is an opening bracket, and then you put this inside. This is another opening bracket. And when your corresponding closing bracket comes in, you just pop those off and you bring it out. And then your corresponding opening bracket comes in, you just bring them out. So this is the first thing that you can do. And if your stack is empty, you can say that it's true. Now, why this condition is necessary, I will tell you. Why do you need to check whether your stack is empty so that you can return it as true? Why not? The reason is sometimes your stack might not be empty. Like, for example, we got here 3 brackets around the square around the curly bracket and the square bracket. Now we got a square bracket to close it and also a curly bracket to close it, but we don't have a round bracket. So you put that in and you put this in, and then you put this in as well. Okay. Now your corresponding bracket comes in, so you pop this out, and your corresponding bracket comes in, so you pop this out. And this one is still left over, so it's not empty. The stack is still not empty, so there you go. Now we got to see these two conditions. Now there is another condition that I want to talk about. This also works for conditions like all of them are opening. You just put in your stack, and you just check if your stack is empty, and they're not because you put all of them inside, so they're like false because they didn't even come out because they did not have a corresponding bracket to them, right? Now, whenever we try to see an opening bracket, we do need to remember them, like last time when we saw them. That's why we're using a stack over here. So whenever we find a closing bracket and then we take out the last one we put in, we can immediately know that, okay, this is our brackets and they're corresponding to each other. They are valid. That is how you know they're valid. Okay, you need to remember the opening brackets for you to match them with the closing brackets. And also, what if there is a mismatch like this? This is a curly bracket. Now I just put in my opening bracket over here. Now we do pop this out while matching. So you pop it out and then you see that these are not equal. So you immediately return false. Now there is also another cases where you might get an opening bracket, sorry, a closing bracket without an opening bracket like this. You don't even have it. So what you do is you simply check your stack. You're completely empty. There's nothing to pop out. But you have a closing bracket, then it's invalid. You immediately return false. So we'll write everything in detail in our coding part, so you don't need to worry about them. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and let's start our coding. Okay. So the first thing that I want to do is create a stack character. Stack equal to new stack. Because we're gonna, this might be a string, but we're gonna store them as characters like this or this and so on. So let it be a character. Now we're gonna go through each character in the string. So I is equal to 0. I'm gonna use the wait. Oh my god, what did I do? One minute. Sorry, the string s was missing. Yeah, alright. So we create our stack. It's time to go through each character in the string, and right now our only job is to do pop, do push it inside whenever we see an opening bracket, and whenever we see a closing bracket, we just need to pop the top of the stack and check it with our whatever whatever closing bracket you got in it. And as I already told you, that writing the default condition for these are much more simpler. And yeah, so let's see. All right. For I is equal to 0, I less than the length x plus. We're gonna start with the string, taking the characters off the string. So s char I. Alright. So right now I'm storing each character in a variable, and this is the character that I'm gonna check for. Now the first thing that we're gonna do is try to push these characters if they're open brackets. So we'll have a chance of getting 3 types of brackets. So B can be equal to a round bracket, or our character can be equal to a curly bracket, or our character can be equal to a square bracket. Alright, so whenever you see an opening bracket, it's time to push that in your stack. Push this character into your stack. Now it's time to do the else part. I think we don't really have to do anything else whenever we see an opening bracket. The only problem comes up whenever we see a closing bracket, because that is the most crucial part. Now, as I already talked about in our previous example, that sometimes you might have your closing brackets first. And when you have your closing brackets first and you try to pop out from an empty stack, then that will create a problem, right? Because that is invalid and that can create an error. So you can't pop out from something that is empty. And also, this is a great time to return false, because this is completely invalid, having a closing bracket coming first before an open bracket comes. So if my stack is empty, I can return a false. Alright. Right now, I've returned false. Okay, this is the very first thing. Now what I want to do is I got an opening bracket and my stack is not empty. Okay, my stack is not empty. That means I do have something like an opening bracket or something. I have it inside my stack. Okay, sorry about that, but yeah, I do have something on my stack. So what should I do? Yep, pop it out and start checking. So right now I'm gonna pop it. So the character that's gonna pop out is the top character in the stack. So let's have a stack over here. When we push it in, this is going to be the top, and this is going to be what's going to pop out. So we're going to have something like a name. Let's have a name. The top bracket. Yeah. So a lengthy name. So let's just have it top B equal to. Now, the top bracket is something that you just popped out from your stack. All right. Now, what do you have to do if the character they're currently in is a closing rounded bracket, and also whatever you pop out is also a rounded opening bracket, then you should turn true, right? Now you can do this, but the problem is you should also write an else condition and return false if it's not the case, right? If it's not the case, then you should also do an else condition. What would I recommend to do is turn one of these conditions into a not equal to. All right. So what you should turn as not equal to is the one that you're popping out, because currently you have this character. Your current character is the closing bracket, whatever it might be, but the popping should be corresponding to that, and if it's not, then return false. Simple. So you can just choose this one, the one that you're popping out, to be the condition that it's not, okay? Now you do need to just write this for the entire thing, so it's close. Let me do this, and oh, sorry, and top B is not equal to the opening curly braces. Return it as a false, and if equal to a closed one, and top B is not equal to opened one, return false. All right, there you have it. Now it's time to finish this entire for loop, come out, and you'll be like, okay, what's there? Return true, right? But that's not the case. Shouldn't do that. Oh my god. So you should not do that. That's something like Most people do. They return immediately true, but that's not the case. I've already discussed about this case for you guys. Sometimes it might be all going like perfect, but suddenly there might be some kind of like an open bracket, and they don't have any closing brackets. So for example, um, we got this one, we put it inside the stack, and then when the closing bracket comes, we pop this out, and both of them are a good match. So we don't return any false, and then the for loop continues. And when it comes to an open square bracket, we put that inside our stack, and the for loop ends, and you would be returning true. But here, you have something in your stack, and you never even have a closing bracket for this one. So how do you check that? Just return if the stack is empty or not. The stack is empty. That's it. So let's just check whether we got any errors.